Hello everybody, I have decided to kind of like remaster all of my BLM videos. I've made about 5 videos over the past talking about various things Black Lives Matter has done, but it makes it difficult if somebody, because of this, it causes a lot of idiots to think that I'm like racist or something like that, right? And it makes it difficult to kind of prove otherwise when I say, well, I have 5 different videos, go find them. I figure, let's update it and combine them all together and do some massive re-editing on all the videos together. So basically, the new content of this video is what we're going to be starting off with, and I'm basically just giving you most of the 2022 BLM news, and then the older stuff will be after in its re-edited form, so you can be updated on most things that BLM has done wrong and understand why I don't support them and why you shouldn't either. We're going to start off with a story that was talked about this year, but it's from 2020, which is where they had secretly bought a $6 million house using all of the funds. And I think most of you already know that BLM has received, over the years, I think the number was $1.8 billion. I forget if that's the amount of donation money they received or the amount of damage they caused. 1.8 billion. Was that it? I can't remember. Whatever. They received a lot of money, though, okay? And they've also caused a lot of money in terms of damage. Anyway, let's read a little bit of this, shall we? 3 leaders of BLM, Patrisse Cullors, of course, Alicia and Melina, sat around a table on the patio of an expensive house in Southern California, of course. The women were recording a YouTube video to mark their first anniversary of George Floyd's murder, and they discussed their racial justice work and the difficulties they have faced over the year. At first, by the way, if you don't know the story, they had actually claimed that the money did not go to this house, but then when people saw the YouTube video where they actually filmed in the patio of the backyard of the house, they realized that it actually was the exact same house from the rental listing, proving that they not only used the funds to buy this house, but that they lied about it. Anyway, to keep the video going, I'm only going to read a portion from each article because they are obviously long. Read them yourself, though, if you want to hear all the information. Another one is, of course, as you'd expect, more fraud. The Boston BLM activists, as well as her husband, were indicted on federal fraud charges. I mean, what do you want me to say? And what's funny is that it's not just like the leaders of BLM. It's like, because they have different leaders in different countries, right? Different areas. There's literally a leader here in Toronto. There's one in like fucking California, Boston, New York, different areas, right? And they've all done something in terms of theft, stealing money, fraud. Last week, the BLM activist Monica and her husband Clark, founders of a local nonprofit, whatever, were charged an 18-count indictment with 2 counts of wire fraud conspiracy, 1 count of conspiracy, 13 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of making false statements to a mortgage lending business. The indictment also charged Cannon Grant with 1 count of mail fraud. Okay, and then finally, another case of fraud. This was when Amazon suspended BLM from their charity platform, which was also done due to fraud. This week, Amazon has suspended the BLM Global Network Foundation from its charity platform. The company cites that the reason for the decision was the foundation's failure to disclose how over $50 million in donations received after the racial injustice protests in 2020 have been spent. And this was talked about earlier this year, back in February. I mean, the amount of fraud, it just goes on and on and on. Again, read all these articles in full if you wish, and even the videos I've made in the past talked about other cases of fraud, because I think in total there is like 5 or 6. I just showed you 3, but I believe there's 5 or 6 in total. It actually might be more than that, because I probably haven't heard everything, but that's just what I talked about personally. Anyway, from this point on, you are now going to see 4 BLM videos that I made ever since 2020, re-edited down and combined into one long video. Take this as your full evidence and reasoning for why you should not trust or support BLM as an organization. And just as I've said in previous videos, but I'll say it again, not supporting BLM does not mean you don't support black people. You can support a person or a race of people without supporting a terrorist organization who steals money. Okay, you can. So when idiots say, well, if you don't support BLM, you're automatically a racist. No, that's not right, okay? You are just too stupid to separate the person and the organization. Black people are not BLM. They're not, they never were, they never will be. And if anything, you're actually insulting all black people by claiming that they are the same. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the video and all the evidence needed as to why I or anybody else should never support BLM as an organization. Toodles. The unmitigated hypocrisy of Black Lives Matter supporters is unreal. They want to go on talking about statistics like, Black Lives Matter protests aren't bad, 93% have been peaceful, and they want to ignore it because 7% to them is a small percent. That may be true, but when it comes to cop killings, they want to talk about raw numbers. Because when it comes to police stats, 375 million interactions in the US with police with civilians, and 99% are peaceful. So they want to go on talking about percentage, 7% being small. Well, I think 1% is small too. The only thing is, when they talk about cops, they want to talk about raw numbers. So let's talk about raw numbers. Out of that 7% of violent Black Lives Matter protests, what is the raw number of actual violent protests from Black Lives Matter? According to crime stats, last year, 1,000 people were fatally shot by police, and only 25% are actually black. The rest are white and Hispanic. And according to stats, the shooting rates from cops towards black people is actually less than what the crime rate would predict. Because black people make up 53% of all homicides and 60% of all theft, but make up only 13% of the population. So if you want to sit here talking about the raw numbers of horrible police officers, let's go into percent, because when it comes to Black Lives Matter protests, that's what you want to talk about. But when it comes to cops, percent no longer matters. What unmitigated fucking hypocrisy. Alright, to all of the Black Lives Matter terrorist sympathizers out there who constantly want to try and debunk people like me who are, of course, pro-fact as opposed to pro-stupidity. If you still support Black Lives Matter after what I'm going to show you today, then you are just genuinely hopeless, or you yourself are a terrorist and or terrorist sympathizer. Now, I'm actually incredibly happy that Trump did one of the few good things, which was labeling Antifa as a terrorist organization, because they are. Anybody who even has like a barely functioning brainstem knows that Antifa is in fact a terrorist organization. They are not really anti-fascist because they are fascists themselves. If anything, Antifa should be short for anti-fact, because all these assholes do is deny anything that hurts their feelings and then uses violence to get their own way. And that's actually why they've been labeled as a terrorist organization, because they use politically charged views to attack people, despite what the mainstream media wants you to believe. But the fact that the mainstream media wants you to believe differently actually only proves my points even further. If you don't believe me, you can take a look at the investigations Project Veritas did recently. They have a part 1 here into exposing Antifa, part 2 here, part 3 here, and they did kind of like an additional part 2 here as well. Anybody who has a brain, if they still support Black Lives Matter and have not been listening to me, then perhaps maybe you'll listen to the founders themselves with their own fucking words. Are you ready? Black Lives Matter fundraising handled by a group with convicted terrorists on its board. The co-founder of Black Lives Matter names a convicted cop killer as one of her heroes. What a shock. And the BLM national organization is fiscally sponsored through a leftist group whose board of directors includes a convicted terrorist. Now, let me just give a little disclaimer here. I am not defending cops as a whole. I do believe that we have a very serious, authoritarian privilege problem with the police. They are definitely hurting people, white and black, when they really shouldn't be, and they are in fact abusing their fucking power. But that doesn't mean that Black Lives Matter should be calling a cop killer as one of their fucking heroes. It really just proves that you have a narrative and a motive behind what you're doing, and it's not just for justice. You have a narrative behind what you're doing, and quite frankly, it's disgusting. And additionally, you also have a convicted fucking terrorist on your board of directors. So don't fucking tell me at this point that just like Antifa, Black Lives Matter is also not a terrorist organization, because they are. Alicia Garza, one of 3 co-founders of BLM, national organization, has repeatedly talked about how convicted cop killer and wanted domestic terrorist Joanne Chesimard, also known as Assata Shakur, what a shock, is one of her main inspirations. Susan, a member of the board of directors for the Left Wing, of course they're Left Wing, obviously, Thousands Currents Group, which handles the intake of donations made to BLM, is a convicted terrorist who, among other things, was suspected of helping Shakur escape from prison. There's a lot more to this article, and I do suggest that you look it up to continue reading, but I want to keep this video nice and short and sweet. I also want to show you a second article, which goes by Black Lives Matter co-founder says the group's goal is to get Trump out. And a lot of you might be saying, well, obviously Trump is bad, Orange Man bad. But that's not the point. The problem is not that you're trying to get Trump out. I mean, this article actually shows it that the co-founder wants to drill Joe Biden too, which is great for a number of reasons. Number 1, Joe Biden's a pedophile. Number 2, a terrible fucking candidate. And number 3, he's a Democrat. So it's good to finally give a Democrat some probing for once. But here's the thing. The problem is not about Trump or Biden or whoever. The problem is that they are using their political opinions to push an organization that is supposed to be for justice of black people, and what you're fighting for is not for the justice of black people. We've been over this a million times. Black lives do not really matter to Black Lives Matter unless a black person is killed by a white person. But if a black person is killed by another black person, which is the highest percentage, by the way, Black Lives Matter has nothing to say. Because as proven repeatedly from my other videos, and now from even these articles, we have the founders now literally admitting, well, we don't really care about the movement. We don't really care about black lives. We don't really care about who's killing black lives or who black lives are killing. Our ultimate goal is just get Trump out. So why name your organization Black Lives Matter? It's because you're lying. So because of all the craziness that we see in our culture over the last 6-7 years, one thing that we have always joked about, because in a lot of ways we didn't think it would get this bad. Yes, it is bad, but I'm laughing because it's just one of those things where it's so bad it's funny. Anyway, one thing that smart people like to do, and the reason that we like to do this, by the way, before I tell you what it is, the reason we like to do this is because we're noticing that the gap between comedy or satire is being bridged to reality. You know, we see this kind of thing where politicians are funny because of how stupid they are, but late night talk show hosts who are literally always talking about politics have become serious when they're supposed to be funny, right? It's the same thing with the mainstream media, right? They are so ridiculous, their lies, their brainwashing, the kinds of stories they'll talk about. It's become so funny that it's like watching a comedy show. So we often joke, that like the mainstream media or politicians are comedy now, but TV shows or late night talk show hosts, that's the seriousness because they're always talking about serious issues even though it's supposed to be comedy, right? So we talk about how the bridge is being, connected. And we would often see articles by like the Babylon Bee or the Onion, and usually they're just kind of making up stuff to be funny, but sometimes they'll even mock real articles. But as of recently, one of their articles has actually become literally real. Take a look at this. Last year, so August 13th, 2020, they wrote this article joking that BLM rioters are awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, the reason why they wrote this article is to kind of mock the idea that BLM's riots are understandable, kind of like how the mainstream media was always forgiving what they do, saying, oh, rioting is good if you're doing it for a reason and you're black and not white. That kind of shit. So to mock the mentality that rioting is somehow good, but only if you're black, the Babylon Bee wrote this article as a way to mock that. You're welcome to read it if you want, but that's basically what it is. And then, for one of the first times ever, the gap between reality and satire has finally been bridged. This is recent. This is only January 29th of 2021. Black Lives Matter movement nominated for Nobel Peace Prize. A Norwegian MP cites global impact of BLM in raising awareness and consciousness of racial injustice. So, I mean, first of all, we know that Black Lives Matter doesn't really do that because they're terrorists, but, like, riots, burning down cities and buildings and all this stuff, that definitely deserves a Peace Prize. And then, to add insult to injury, the Babylon Bee wrote another similar article on the same fucking day, right here. Again, you may think, oh, Matt, you just put up the same article again. Yeah, and no, it says January 29th, 2021 right on it. BLM nominated for new Nobel Mostly Peaceful Prize. So, just like the Babylon Bee's previous article, mocking the fact that they're rioters and all that stuff, they're now mocking that one CNN newscast you saw. It's in my intro, so if you watch my videos, you've seen this multiple times, where there's that guy talking and it says at the bottom there, fiery but mostly peaceful protests. Remember that clip? It's in my intro. Well, I didn't make that up. That's a real headline from CNN. That's real. No joke. That's 100% real. So they decided to mock it by putting that stupid comment in the title of their article and calling it New Nobel Mostly Peaceful Prize. But hey, Babylon Bee, you made a mistake. It's supposed to be called Nobel Fiery but Mostly Peaceful Prize. Now, you might be thinking, if you're a stupid person, Matt, that's only one time. Yeah, even though the whole point is that it's been growing over the years. But regardless, allow me to cater to your lack of brain cells. It happened again. Here is a comparison. This is the Babylon Bee, a different article they wrote. Study finds most Americans support making wall around the Capitol permanent to keep politicians in. And then that one also kind of happened. Check out this tweet. Permanent security fencing coming to U.S. Capitol. New statement from acting U.S. Capitol Police Chief. Vast improvements to the physical security infrastructure must be made to include permanent fencing. So, when you go on the Babylon Bee or the Onion, don't worry, you're no longer seeing satire anymore because our real world has gotten so fucking insane, there's no difference. And we've been losing the difference slowly every day since 2014. I mean, it gets better for, their founders. Of course, you've probably heard that just a few months ago, one of the other founders took money that, from the donations that they received and bought herself a $1.4 million home. Now, this happened a few months ago, and I didn't make a video about it when it happened, and the reason was because it was just one little thing. It wasn't surprising, and there was, conflicting information, but it turns out, yeah, she literally used the funding to do this. You have people who are still in denial or just don't understand how it happened or why it happened, and they're surprised by it. It's like, it's been proven repeatedly that BLM does not really care about black people. Everything is a political movement. That's all it is. It's all it ever has been. It's all it ever will be. And then people still, defended her. Black Lives Matter themselves came out and made this statement at the time. The narratives being spread about Patrice, I guess is how you pronounce it, have been generated by right-wing forces. Remember, whenever a extremist SJW leftist organization states that something is right-wing, it's just a key word for factual researchers who go against what we do. We're intent on reducing the support and influence of a movement that is larger than any one organization. Oh, this I like, by the way. They finally admit to being an organization. I've called BLM an organization multiple times, and every time I did, people were saying, no, Matt, it's just an idea that supports the equality of black people. Well, now, BLM themselves called themselves an organization back in mid-April. And this is a video by Memeology. They do a lot of great factual videos. I'm not like using them as a source. I'm just showing some of their screenshots, so take a look. Fucking amazing, man. The LA Jail Reform Group, funded by BLM co-founder, spent $26,000 on meetings at luxury Malibu resort. So this is for all the people who say she wouldn't spend $1.4 million. That's awful. We're not like that. And then she spent an additional $26,000 at a Malibu resort. And then, to no surprise ever, BLM co-founder funneled businesses to company run by her baby daddy. Oh, what a shock. Yet another black couple where the father runs away. That's not a... Oh, sorry. I apologize, YouTube. I'm not allowed to state offensive statistics. But anyway. And then the BLM co-founder, the same one, she steps down as executive director following real estate scandal spending spree. I'm not done. Recently, another BLM activist, Sasha Johnson, was shot by men entering a party, London police say, as supporters demand accountability. Now here's the funny thing. Just wait a minute. You're probably wondering, why the fuck are you on CNN, Matt? There's a really good reason for this. So, when this information came out, all of the stupid SJWs were saying things like, Black Lives Matter, fuck all you white people attacking us yet again. And then people like me are sitting there, as we always are. What about the facts? Can we look at those, please? SJWs, no, fuck facts, Black Lives Matter. Okay, but the facts, can we look at those? They're going to keep saying no, but I'm going to look at them anyway. Of course, your first code into this is shot by men. Now, we know how the mainstream media works. If a shooter has white skin, they will always put white man in the title. But they will just put man if the person is anything but white to hide it. But here's the interesting thing. CNN, for probably the first time ever, actually admitted it really was for black men. Now, granted, they didn't put it in the title, but that's typical. We expect that from CNN. Even this glimmer of improvement actually makes me happy. CNN admitted that it was for black guys who shot her. And it also gives vindication for all of us who are anti-SJW because the SJWs were saying racism, 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 but yet she was shot by black guys. Are you still going to keep supporting BLM and its founders? Probably, because you have no fucking brains.